Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt, and due to popular demand, I bring back Miss Jodi Reynosa and Mr. Will Nutter, aka Johan Fritz. Now, unlike most podcast episodes I do with metaphysic authors, doctors, and engineers, I put loads of scientific information in the show description. But for this episode, we're going to discuss what we're getting from our clients in our quantum hypnosis practices. So I always caveat, please be open-minded, but mostly practice discernment. So with that, Miss Jodi Reynosa and Mr. Will Nutter, welcome back to Merkaba Chakras.
Thank you so much.
We're
honored to be back.
Yeah, so some time has lapsed. The holidays have came and went, and I hope you guys didn't put too much extra holiday weight on. But but this is going to be a fun one because this is more of a kind of an informal, just kind of swap from one practitioner to another. And I have been doing quantum hypnosis and many other modalities my whole life, but I have been doing quantum hypnosis with QHHT and then BQH and some other ones as far back as 2012. And I love to swap notes with practitioners all over the world because everyone gets something different to see what the heck is going on in this reality through our clients and what is happening to our clients as well. So we can get kind of real-time developments as they happen. So before we compare notes, can you briefly tell the audience how you even got into quantum hypnosis?
For me, actually, I heard about Dolores Cannon, and I started voraciously reading and listening to her books on audible.com. I would go on long walks, like 3 to 5 mile walks, and I would just go through her books and listen. And I just thought, wow, maybe one day I will do this. This is a really amazing modality. And first, I wanted my own QHHT and session. And so I, scoured the internet to try to find a practitioner close to me. And so my first session, I believe, was in around 2013, between 2013 and 2015 timeframe. And there was so much happening in my life, and I was awakening to so many things, kind of like unpeeling that onion. And I found this woman in Mill Valley, California, and she was awesome. And we uncovered so much. And, a lot of our clients talk about this, and I felt the same way. And that's when I came to consciousness, like full consciousness. I was like, wow, I said that? I can't believe that was me. Like I was the mouthpiece for my superconscious or my SC, This was amazing. And I listened to that recording for a long time because you get little bits and pieces, as time goes by and you're in a different place, on your journey, say a few months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road. And as you listen, you get little bits and pieces. Now, I started off with Dr. Brian Weiss, before Dolores Cannon. And, the psychologist who he would help people with phobias and help people with, all sorts of PTSD. But then he kept getting clients who would go beyond birth, like he didn't believe in past lives, but yet his clients kept seeing all this stuff when they'd go under and seeing all this past life stuff. And he was like, okay, I've got to research this. This is unbelievable to me. And he'd find that it was all factual. The things that they would see, the attire in that time period was correct. The names of the cities that they would say. So that's what we're seeing in our client base as well.
Yeah, the book that Jodi's chatting about so eloquently is called Many Lives, Many Masters.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys haven't checked it out, I recommend you do.
It's interesting.
I mean, Dolores's books are also brilliantly written, but they're also written in a way that it's good for both practitioners and people who are going to get sessions. So if you're somebody who's trying to figure out what's going on with you and why it's happening, and kind of I guess we call it the underpinnings of the nuts and bolts of why it's happening. They're great books to read. So.
I'm going to put links to them in the show descriptions for people who have yet to read them. So, two things that come up, because for both of you guys, well, for you, Jodi, you came in through curiosity because you were really interested in the contents. It was amusing and curiosity. And then, Will, for you, you came in through PTSD and having alcoholism and addiction issues that kept on coming back, and that you were repressing something that you don't know. Why do I have PTSD? I can't figure it out. And so for both of you guys, what you uncovered was the secret space program, right? And so the thing that's interesting is I did one myself early on when I was investigating the modality, and I've been investigating energy healing and consciousness modalities my whole life as a Buddhist, and I'm always fascinated at the new different ways that people come up with. And so this one was like really easy to pick up and really easy to try, and so it's just a good skill to have. But it's just deep meditation. But the thing that I found interesting is, whether I did it myself or had a practitioner close to me do it, or you guys found one close to you guys, the lives that come up, the information, it seems like you're making it up. But then when you do the research, or when clients do the research on the information that they uncovered, they oftentimes find that the information is factual. So then it makes it even harder to believe that are these past life between lives, and future lives, and even parallel lives, are these memories legitimate, or are they fantasy? Because if they're fantasy, why would it be verified? So let's talk about that part first.
Sure.
So when you guys were going through your sessions to verify it for your own recall, what information did you look into to make sure that this was real or this was fantasy?
So with my set of sessions, I talked about this actually in my testimony. One of the very first sessions I did, Connie put me under, and the part that I remember, I was having a really, really hard time going under, but once she tried to put me under the first time, and she immediately brought me back up, and she actually had me do this relaxation technique that she taught, and it put me right back under. And that second time when I went under, all of a sudden I was completely under. And while I was under, from what she had said, I started speaking in German, full-blown German. She had wrote down as much as she could at the speed at which I was talking. And what happened is come to find out, when I came to, she goes, "How long have you spoken German?" I said, I don't speak German. I mean, I was like emphatic about it. I was like dead on, like, I don't speak German. She's like, "You just spoke for over 30 minutes in German." And I'm like, "What?" And then she takes that transcript to someone who was a professor at my college, WVU. She went there. She had him actually transcribe it. And he directly asked her, he said, "Where did you get this particular dialect from? What book did you get it from?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, this dialect died out in 1943 in Germany when Third Army rolled through this section of Germany. It doesn't exist anymore. So how did you get a hold of this particular dialect?" And she's like, "Well, this came out of a 23, 24-year-old client I had sitting in my office."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "That's impossible, because he's not old enough to know this dialect." And they translated it, and what it translated into was a conversation between me, the person that I call the old man, and this third party.
Mm-hmm.
And we were actually having this conversation. And in that conversation, the old man was trying to get me. It was my very first command mission, where I was given full command of the ship. And the stress reaction I had here in the here and now, I actually had taken my fingernails and pushed them into the palms of my hands so hard because I was stressing out so hard I'd blow on the floor.
Now, Connie used a different method. It wasn't the QHHT method,
right.
But
very similar though.
It is similar, and it allowed Will to go under and access a lot that he wasn't able to on the conscious level.
Right.
So, and in full transparency, Will has given me a couple QHHT sessions, which we've accessed a lot of information. Will has not done a QHHT session yet, but I am actually going to be facilitating that for him.
You're going to uncover some more?
Oh, yeah. So that's going to be really interesting. So stay tuned, everybody, for what we find out. It's going to be, buckle your seatbelts, because it's going to be very, very intriguing.
Well, it's going to be a playlist on your channel, Jodi.
It is.
Of all your hypnosis sessions that you want to put in. That's interesting, Will, about the 1943. So, what did the university researchers say, for how under hypnosis you continued on a dead language?
He said that was basically impossible and he didn't believe it. So when Connie comes back to me, she's like, I don't know what to make of this. This does not make any sense to me. Here you are speaking a language that you say you don't know. She even spoke to my sister, who was her office manager. She directly asked my sister, she goes, have you ever heard your brother speak in German? Has he ever taken German? She's like, no. And it really perplexed her and perplexed me. Now I had other past lives come up, what we call PLRs, past life regressions, show up in other sessions, and then it would go directly into that super conscious state, as we call it in QHHT. But the past lives that showed up, some of them were in the medieval times, some of them were even before the medieval times.
And what were you doing in those? Because there's a reason why you incarnated in those lifetimes. What kind of skills did you pull from those other lifetimes that the superconscious? For people who aren't familiar with what the superconscious is, it's basically another word for God. Your higher self, the oversoul, the one soul that encompasses it all, whatever you want to name or define it as.
Like the way Julia kind of describes it when she's talking in QHHT terms, essentially what she says is you have like this soul, and we're each fragments of this oversoul, right? God, right? And we're fragments of that divine creator. In terms of
even the bad guys that you guys don't like,
even the bad guys,
exactly.
Yes. And
we have to experience contrast to grow.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too, right? I mean, some of these people,
excuse me, sorry.
Even some of these people that we look at in our own lives that would be considered to be our villains, quote unquote. It's amazing how many times when we start accessing the superconscious, we find out that up there, these guys are actually our best friends, and they're actually helping us learn certain lessons down here. It's very odd. But what I would say is that for me personally, when I was under these sessions, and you're absolutely correct, there's a whole bunch of stuff that came up for me that was kind of tough to swallow at first. At the end of that year and a half period, I think I did 72 sessions with her total. At the end of that year and a half period, essentially what she told me was she handed me this packet of papers and she goes, I do not want this information in my office because I don't need a government agency showing up asking me questions. That's how paranoid she was because of some of the stuff that was showing up. Now, the one thing that showed up that she told me about, and I still remember this very vividly, she said that I actually gave her a timeline of the presidents in that timeline. Now, mind you, this was in 95, 96 when this was going on. So here I am, I'm telling her, I'm like, okay, the current president in your timeline happens to be Bill Clinton. He's going to win a second term. The guy after Bill Clinton is going to be Al Gore. He has 2 terms. And then it's going to be this guy, Obama. He's going to have 2 terms, and it's civil war in the United States in 2016. That the U.S. will literally fall into a civil war. Now, here's the thing, right? So I got a chance to talk to Connie in 2017. And she was talking to my sister. And mind you, I hadn't talked to her since these sessions had happened, right? She come my sister's chatting with her and her back's to me. And she's like, nobody wants to take over my business. My kids don't have any sort of wanting to help in the business. And I've helped basically nobody, right? I've helped no one. And I'm standing there. I verbalized it to her. I said, well, you saved at least one, Connie. And she turned around and she's like, what? I said, you saved at least one. You saved me. I said, had you not intervened when you did, I said, I would either be dead, in jail, or both. And that's the truth. That is the truth of where I was at the time in 1995. I was hitting rock bottom with my addiction at that time. And we've actually had other people within our practice that have had very similar responses, because we've helped them break their addictions too. We help facilitate them breaking those addictions.
Yeah. Oftentimes addictions are just an outlet, but not appropriate outlet to resolve issue. You have to look underneath the hood and see what the problem is. Right. So I have a couple. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I wanted to go back to something that you said, Vaughn. So you mentioned that I got into QHHT because of curiosity. Yes, it was, but it was even more than that. Because at the time I was studying at a place called Intuitive Way in Walnut Creek, California. And I was honing in on like my psychic abilities and actually getting ready to be a reader. And I actually thought, you know what, I really want to know all about the metaphysical world, even more than, just me growing up and feeling like I had natural abilities, because after my NDE at 5, like those psychic abilities, like were off the chart. And I feel like a lot of people have had that happen after their NDEs, just, it's almost like your third eye just is wide open and everything. It's like this all-knowing type of feeling in a way. You're very sensitive to what other people's thoughts are, what's going on around you, all of that at the same time. I mean, people would pass me and I'd be like, oh, I see their past life here, 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 and there. And I'm just like, whoa, it's very interesting. And also beyond that, some of my experiences in my QHHT session, they were all off world. Most of them were all off world. So that clued me into why am I having all of these? What does that mean? And then fast forward, I then connected it to the SSP stuff. And there was actually a time when I remember in one of the experiences, I was a little frustrated and upset in the experience. I was on this planet and I was on this team and I was getting frustrated because my command, my top wasn't allowing me to basically be in my full capacity as far as leadership. So it's like there was this like disgruntled feeling.
Yeah, you were a journalist, right? You were a reporter, TV reporter and journalist for a local news station.
For ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Yeah, all over the United States. But in that experience, though, in QHHT, there was like this disgruntled feeling about like, why isn't he allowing me to go further? And so it's interesting because we had shared experiences with this kind of stuff. So.
You mean in terms of the oversoul preventing certain information from coming out prematurely? Is that what you mean?
What she's talking about is she was actually
being on the same crew.
We were on the same crew and
commanding officers together.
She was actually my XO on one of the ships that I was on. And there's some missions where I grabbed certain people because of the priority of the mission, the dangerousness of the mission. I chose people because of their skill sets. And there are certain people that I brought into certain missions because they had capabilities that I needed on the ground. The old man, when it came to certain missions, he basically would make me like a ground commander. Like he would say, take the people you need and get the mission accomplished, right? And there were missions where there were people that I cared about, Jodi, that were in these situations, but I had to figure out, okay, well, I still need those capabilities on the ground because it's either us or them. So, and we've talked about some of these in my testimony that were really gory, but the bottom line is it's like the dynamic she's talking about is that's actually how we as a command pair, that's how we kind of balance each other. It's like she keeps me kind of reined in because I have certain tendencies that if I don't keep them in check, don't look good and don't serve the purpose of what we're trying to do. And then she has some as well. So it's like we kind of buffer each other and keep each other in check that way.
But in that experience, in that QHHT, what was coming forward is the top before he came in actually was, or he was on a different mission. And before he came back to the rest of the crew, that particular commander was saying, like, you aren't, you're not going to be on this particular mission. You're not going to, it's almost like I was being looked over. And I was like, okay, I don't understand why. Well, he gets back and he's like, nope, she is. And this is what's happening. And I want her on, this crew with me. So it was just interesting.
So let me ask you guys this. How do you verify any of this off-world information that you were getting through your sessions before you became a practitioner?
So what I did was I actually ignored those sessions for a number of years. 96 was the last time I really looked at them up until 2000. I OCR'd them, got them in a digital format, and then left them sit until 2012. I did not look at them for 12 years after, from that 2000 period to 2012.
So what made you look at them?
Well, I had an NDE in 2012 I mentioned in our previous
right.
And when I had that NDE, it kind of blew the last memory cap on certain things, and a whole bunch of stuff kind of flooded in. The second thing is that I knew at that point there were certain pieces of evidence that were going to start showing up around me to either verify or confirm some suspicions that I had. The first thing that started showing up was like I was describing certain like craft and the way the craft would operate and move. And I was also talking about like certain pieces of technology, and they all of a sudden start showing up in like patents, for example. I do patent searches. So that's something I actually was doing, was looking for hardcore verifiable data. And these craft and technology started showing up in the patent searches, and I'm like, okay, then this sort of verifies kind of what I'm aiming at.
Right. So a lot of synchronicities.
And then I was chatting with a gentleman who I did my very first video with, James Rink, about this. And I'll be honest with you, I actually did not want to come out and do videos initially. But when I started chatting with him, we were in a kind of a group chat one night, and 3 or 4 people all said basically the same thing. Like, well, do we know exactly who you are? We know your face. Every time your face shows up, I get triggered. That to me is another method of confirmation. It's like, with the way they use this in these programs, you don't know exactly who you may have interfaced with. When you see certain people, you know for a fact there's a trigger there that's causing your subconscious to acknowledge at least the energy of that person, because for some reason there's interaction that you've had with this person. Even in our current QHHT sessions, we have people that have the exact same thing. We've had people that have had family members they've had past relationships with, and they're unsure as to why when that family member leaves or a certain dynamic occurs, all of a sudden they start having certain psychological responses to that trigger, right?
For me, the evidence that showed up, like for instance, on the last show, we talked about how I just knew there were bases on the dark side of the moon. And there were things that would just kind of leak through. And the more I talked about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that was probably because of my QHHT session. I was seeing certain things in those sessions. And then in my conscious life, I was remembering. And also in one of my experiences in QHHT, I remember a space crew having an insignia over their right breast in their spacesuits, or on their spacesuits, rather. And I remember in my conscious life, I saw that insignia and I was like, whoa, that's real.
But where did you see this insignia?
When I was just looking on the internet, and then I started seeing how, like, nowadays Space Force uses stuff like that. Even some pictures that people have drawn, things that they've seen. So
the symbol she's talking about is the Astro symbol. That's the actual symbol in question.
And then I also would see people wearing an insignia that looked like very similar to the Merkaba, actually. But within the Merkaba, they would have almost like a map of their system. And so they put like dots on the outer rim of the Merkaba.
Mhm.
So it was like a map of where they were in their system.
Right, right.
So, yeah. So that was, and then another thing is like in the conscious, in my conscious life, outside of QHHT, I'd get certain downloads and then I'd go verify, like, especially when we were together, it's just like, that was magnified even more. So like, for instance, I told him one time, okay, I woke up and I was told on the ship, we were about to get attacked. And then you in the dream told me to type in Project Dark Star. And I was like, okay. I go, do you know anything about that? And so he's like, not really. But then as time went on, we started hearing about it. And then now
it's actually a real
it's a program.
There's a program down here. It's actually an Air Force program. It's called Project Dark Star.
And then what is it that they do? What does the Air Force do?
Project Dark Star is the replacement for the SR-71 Blackbird. It's actually even stealthier version of it.
All right.
But the thing is, I mean, many of these program names get reused. So you'll have like the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, AFOSI, will reuse certain project names that they deem, they call magic clearance, majority eyes only clearance. And that's where these programs come into play. These USAP, unacknowledged special access programs come into play.
Or like one time I was like, what is Project Sapphire? I'm like, why is that coming in my mind? We looked that up and it's like the Clintons had been involved and like a bunch of like things.
Project Sapphire got directly at the core of these kids and the dumbs.
That too, yeah. And they were hiding.
And it also had to do with certain pedophilia rings and how these pedophilia rings that were in these high positions in the UK and the US had been getting busted. And how law enforcement was trying to keep it under wraps because they didn't want to alert certain people. So they were actually busting some of these rings. And all of a sudden, it was like, we've been chatting about for me a week. And all of a sudden we start hearing about it in the news. It's like all of a sudden stuff started popping up in the news about it while we were talking one night. We're both like, we're like,
who's bugging our place?
Yeah. Let's look on our face like, okay, what just happened?
Yeah, it's very strange. So like, when you see those movies like CSI or something, and you see like they're mapping out everything and it's going everywhere, like these things of like everywhere. That's like us. Like we are like dogs with a bone, we just don't stop. And we're like, oh my gosh, it leads to this and then this. And then, oh my gosh, here it is. It's just crazy. Yeah.
There's a couple of things I wanted to mention. There's a lot of synchronicities in the verification of your sessions when you were using the modality to uncover hidden knowledge about yourself and your purpose here. And it happens in sessions and it also happens in life that certain information you will be privy to that is relevant, and you might want an answer to something, but you may not get that answer. Even under hypnosis, you may not get that answer because the superconscious or even your higher self, or even if you wanted to connect to your family member, that persona will speak through the client and say, you're not ready for that. You're going to find that out in your journey. When it's time, it will come into play. There's a couple of things that you need to learn or experience first before you're in the mindset to take in that information. So that's kind of a wake-up call for some clients where they're like, wait a minute, I came here to get this answer and I can't get this answer. And it's like, nope, you can't get this answer because there's a couple of things you need to do that you need to experience. And so so that's one thing. But oftentimes when the client moves on with their life, these answers are revealed through synchronicity. And it's like it's like you were saying, Jodi, like one little piece comes up and then another little piece, and before you know it, you're like, I get it. But had you gotten that information prematurely in your session or early on, you may not be in the mindset to really receive that information and be in a much more wise position to react in a more appropriate way.
Right. It's kind of like the little breadcrumbs.
Right.
Lead you to your quantum purpose, as you're saying.
We actually had this show up during one of our sessions. One of our clients made the comment where she said, the reason why that I can't remember the lady's name. I don't even know if I even want to say that on the air.
No.
But,
Just speaking generalities about the client. Yeah.
What she said was her superconscious said that once she gets in resonance with certain pieces of information, the rest of it will be shown to her.
Mm-hmm.
She has to be willing to get in resonance with it first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that idea of resonance is a lot of what we talk about frequency wise and alignment and healing path. All that stuff kind of plays into that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have somebody who their superconscious basically tells them, look, you're not ready for this because you're not resonant with this information yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we have clients ask the question, well, like, well, okay, how do I get in resonance with this, right? And that's where doing the healing work comes into play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about doing energy modalities, about, doing the other work too. And it's like, well, all that stuff helps with that. And them doing it as a practice also helps with that too.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And also getting out of your own way. For instance, resistance. So
that's a big one. There's a lot of clients that come in and they just want the instant gratification. But when it comes to frequency and metaphysics, you know as well as I do that, like you said, they have to be a certain resonance. So let me give you an example, because and then I'll tell you my example, and then if you guys have examples from your clients,
I'll use my personal example.
Your personal example. We'll swap notes.
But he did.
Okay. So I had a client in the UK. God bless his soul. I wish him the very best. But I give him homework. Okay. All right. So I gave him homework. So Starseed wanted to know why he's always so sad about reality, about this and that. So I gave him homework to do. And there's simple things like write a journal, go draw or paint the star system and your own home, just to kind of get that homesickness out of the way, because it's obviously debilitating you. And a lot of different homework assignments to do. And then he books a follow-up session. We do a follow-up session, and he barely does the homework. I said, go and take the dowsing rod, go into and find a portal point where you can meditate and commune with the oldest tree in the forest. Just do the exercise. And he took maybe a 5-minute walk and check. So it was like that kind of like barely scraping it, and then was frustrated he wasn't getting through. And I said, the reason why I make these suggestions, and however long it takes you to do this, because these are the suggestions that your higher self had also given you. And there's a reason why Source sent you over to the person you needed, was because this is all I ever get. Okay. We get a specific, all these practitioners, I've spoken to many, they get a specific theme. Okay. And they're all unique for each person. So I get star seeds that's come into Earth and they've kind of lost their way. And they're also working on amplifying sixth senses, bringing consciousness in their life and in their world, and just amplifying the energy in their specific area. But they fell off the bandwagon. They got caught up in the 3D dramas and psyops, and they've basically been stunted, and they're getting frustrated because they're like, I like this kind of stuff. I'm not, how do I get there? And so what I typically say is, there's a reason why. There's lots of synchronicities to reason why. And oftentimes every single one of them will open the door and be like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, I know. It was a pre-life planner in the spirit world. You obviously fallen off your way. So get back into my office and let's see where you fell off your mission plan. So because that's in the spirit world, I'm your pre-life planner, kind of like your travel agent, when you pick out your excursions and what you're like your guidance counselor. But you can only make recommendations. They have to follow through and finish the course. If they don't finish the course, they're not going to not graduate to the next level. So, and then there's a lot of times, sometimes some students kind of fall off. And so they have to bring him back. You'd be like, what's going on? It's midterm and you're like really falling behind. Okay, here's some suggestions. Go sleep earlier. Same exact thing. Kind of boring work, but anyway.
I feel you because I'm doing grades right now for my 7th graders.
Yeah, I know, right? So funny. But anyway, so I make these suggestions, they're based off the higher selves recommendations in there. And then I add a little bit of my background. So oftentimes they have so much content that they don't know what to do with it. And so as a writer myself, as a podcaster and all these other things, working in IT and business development, I will give them, and I charge lots of money for my recommendations, but I will give them recommendations on how to start the metaphysical career path as a side hustle, how to write their books and stuff, and just kind of get started and break it down so it's really easy to do. But the thing is eventually I had to kind of cancel the sessions because he was getting frustrated. He wasn't doing the work. And I said, I'm sorry, here's the deal. You cannot raise your frequency off the coattails of your practitioner or your teacher.
Yep.
Okay, this is a personal journey. It's not like going to church and checking a box and now please give me my merit badge.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
you got to do the personal work because your personal work is going to amplify your own frequency to unlock new sixth senses and new experiences that only are available at different levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And that is personal work. So
Right.
Unfortunately, you can go to as many mediums, clairvoyants, practitioners, whatever you name it, you want, you're still going to be stuck in the same place because you haven't done the personal work.
Absolutely.
And they hate to hear that.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like they want to be spoon-fed, and like you were saying, riding on the coattails of people or practitioners or mediums or psychics or whatever. And it reminds me of that biblical story of the 10 virgins, where it's like they didn't have enough oil to meet the bridegroom, right? And so they were like, hey, give me some of that oil. I want to go meet the bridegroom. Like, no, like you have to go through the initiations yourself, like you were saying, so that you can gain all of that. And then you have that, you know about it. It's interesting. Our themes I've seen as I think about it, and you've mentioned your themes, I would say we get a lot of ancient souls and a lot of creator beings and a lot of souls that have walked in the time of Jesus or were disciples of Jesus.
Same here. What's up with that?
Even the mother of Jesus. Like it's wild. It's amazing. So these are like rock star souls here, and we're honored, but it's like they also are like, okay, here are some of the messages that we want to pass on, but also at the same time, navigating this 3D world, can be a little difficult, so
right.
That's why they want to access that SC.
Yeah. So like, cause you guys get also primarily SSP clients that are coming to you, right? Or is it
it's a mix, because you also get, we also get people who want to do the healing work, because there's that layer. It's like, okay, once they know they've been in the SSP, well, now what? Okay, so what? You have to do the healing work. You have to go, okay, wow, all that trauma, all that craziness. Now what? Okay, let's dig deep. Let's dive in.
How much stuff can you deal with at this exact point in time? And we've had people who literally their SC would tell them, we don't think you can handle anymore, so we're gonna stop with this for right now.
Yeah, because you have to process, and you have to process the information that you get. You have to, like, for example, like the bad guys. I know everybody wants to crucify the bad guy, but when you go into your past lives or your future lives, whatever lives you are reviewing, technically they're all parallel. They all exist at the same time. But that's besides the point. Whatever you're reviewing, we always want to punish the bad guys, but they are playing a role in your evolution. And to see that, it was very controversial for non-Buddhists, that the bad guys are playing a role to help you basically, like your brother is going to be your bully so that you finally get up and kick his ass.
Mm-hmm.
And then nobody ever picks on you ever again.
Right.
But it is your personal choice. How long do you keep him a bad guy before you kick his butt? Okay. Because you're also contributing to him being worse of a person by letting this carry on and not finding your courage.
Mm-hmm.
Simple ideas.
But there's also, with that same lesson too, you've also got this lesson of social boundaries. You've got, and what is a social boundary, right? Well, to me, and we've said this with our clients before, social boundaries are the highest form of love. Because essentially what you're saying is that I love myself enough to not allow that to be here anymore. And I do what it takes to make that stop.
Yeah, it goes two ways, because when you learn the lesson, or when you find your voice or your power in whatever lesson you're experiencing, and this is what hypnosis and Buddha's been doing this with deep meditation and sleep hypnosis for a very long time as well. I use QHHT, and then for the remote version, for people who want to get all up in arms about QHHT being in person, QHHT is the Dolores Cannon's version of getting into deep meditative states, and it's in person. And then there's another form called BQH, which is really popular right now that people are aware of. And that's remote. And I mostly use that for most of my clients are worldwide. And so I mostly use that. And then also, since the pandemic, many people also like the option to just be at the comfort of their home, and they're a little bit worried about getting sick from other people for different reasons. And so that's a modality that works for them. It gets the same results. There's also other modalities, like you were saying, will kind of use a different type of script to get you into induction. There's a lot of hypnosis scripts, deep meditation, sleep scripts. Buddhists have thousands of them, to get you in that state, and then you'll start reviewing like your different lifetimes that are coming up in your consciousness for whatever reason, to help you in this specific life. There's a message in what you're reviewing that's giving you clues to what you need to work on to elevate this life that you're working on. Otherwise, there would be no point going through 1,000 lives. You're only going to go through a couple,
and that's
really
a good
critical
point.
ones.
That's a good point, Vaughn, that you bring up, because this is what Dolores Cannon also talked about. We go through all of those visits, in our other experiences, in our other lifetimes, because we want to bring the information that's going to help us in this most important life right now. And I think some people try to get, well, I don't know if they're trying or they just do, but they get caught up in all of the pomp and circumstance, I guess, of like, oh, my past life, this, I was that, I was like, the queen of this, or blah, 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 like,
how does that help you in this life?
Exactly. That's great. But how's it helping you now? What's the lesson? What are you going to take away from that? I was going to mention that sometimes we can also get in our own way. And it can be a total blind spot. You're not consciously aware that you're getting in your own way. And that was my experience when when Will did my session one day, and this SC said, well, we're trying to negotiate with her. And it's like, what? Like, because on a conscious level, I was like, oh, I'm so ready to like move past this block. I'm so ready to like do this. Just give me the answers, because I want to move past this. And yet the SC was like, okay, we're trying to negotiate with her right now. It's like, wait, what? So somehow there was some resistance, and I was holding on to something at some layer of me.
Yeah.
Wasn't letting it go or something. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's totally true, because when you dissect what are the elements that has brought you to here. So basic Buddhism, fundamentals, basic metaphysics. We're all energy, and as energy, we have come to form, we have projected to form our avatars in the experience that we chose. We could have chosen other planets, other realities. We exist in them all. But we chose this for a specific reason, and we're focused on this one alone so that we can do this ride in the amusement park the best that we possibly can and have the most enjoyment, preferably, as possible. Now, in the amusement park, there's always like clowns that jump at you and things that distract you, and some kind of excitement here, some kind of excitement there, and maybe you're only going for a specific roller coaster, or maybe you are the ones that just want to see the animals for the most part and go to a couple of those exhibits. So you got to pick your ride and stick on your ride, stick on whatever you're focusing on, because you can't do Disneyland in one day. So so the thing is that just like when we look at the elements of our childhood and our upbringing, and how your parents and your environment influenced you, whether you know it or not. They have influenced how you see yourself, how you see other people, how you behave. Some of these weird nuances that we do also are stuck in past lives that we have yet to address, and then stuck in other past lives, and then on and on and on. So that's why when we go into hypnosis, you're going to be shown only what specifically matters to you. And then the question is, that's why a lot of practitioners ask a lot of questions before the sessions, and then in the sessions ask a lot of questions to kind of uncover the onion. So let me give you an example, and you guys give you an example of how this is played out in your clients. So I had a wonderful lady. She's a starseed. Her last lifetime was on another planet. Her and her husband, they're kind of the sheep in the family, the black sheep. They're not the normal church going, Joan and Cleaver type. So, but they found each other. They've been married before. They were aliens in the past life, and they came here for the ascension of Earth, how Earth is raising its frequency, and they brought with them their higher frequency. Well, she couldn't figure out what is the problem for why she couldn't figure out how to fully invest in herself and her business. Like really put herself out there. She kept on censoring herself, not putting it out there. Well, what ended up finding out through hypnosis was that her dad in this lifetime, okay, has had alcoholism issue, and he's better now and they moved on. But during that time frame of his alcoholism, he was very judgmental and very paranoid and kind of schizo a little bit. And so that rubbed off on her. And she's very confident and successful nurse, but she wanted to go off and do her own little naturopathic business on the side and kind of have that grow. Well, the reason why she didn't want to really go out there with her metaphysic naturopathic clinic was she was afraid of rejection, afraid of not getting enough clients, afraid of all this stuff, and that's where it came from. And she couldn't figure out why she kept on, as an opportunity came, she would barely do the minimum, why she would hold herself back. But that's what happened. Once she figured that out and saw that, she called her dad, talked about it, he got they got a great conversation, and then her naturopathic business opened up, and she's doing wonderful. Same exact thing. I had another person who they so she's a real estate broker, and in her past life, she was a blue, kind of like an Andromedan.
Mm.
Okay, her and her husband now, um, they have two kids in that lifetime, and they're like really tall Andromedans, and their planet blew up through some kind of Star Wars type of feud. Their planet blew up, but they got in their spaceship, which is like the car in your parking lot, in your driveway. They got in a spaceship and ventured off and saw their planet explode. I see a lot of these clients where they saw their planet explode from some kind of Star Wars type of episode, and then they become basically political asylums trying to find a planet to have refuge in. Well, they ended up finding Earth. And instead of going to a warm area, they went to an area of the planet that was a lot like their planet, which was kind of cold, kind of like Pacific Northwest cold. So they ended up over by Iceland, Scotland, that area.
Okay.
They'd park their spaceship on a crater it had a volcano up there, a crater, and then it came down. There was nobody there except animals, and they lived perfectly fine. But what was revealed to her, why this was important for her to see, was that there were regular humans. They were white people, and they first were nice, but then they end up killing the parents, and then taking the kids and enslaving the kids to do labor for them because they were really tall and really strong. And then eventually, when they got done with the kids, they killed the kids. So it was very traumatizing to her to see that.
Yeah.
She is paranoid of blonde people. She doesn't know why. Like, I don't understand why I can't. I like, not like I can't stand them or hate them, but I'm scared of blonde people. Why is it that this always triggers me?
Yeah.
That's what it was. Something that simple. And so she had
Wow.
to she had to come to terms, understand, and then, and when you talk to the higher self, you can go in and talk to anybody. So we went in and we talked to the people that killed them in that lifetime, to their higher self, to see why did they do that, and da 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 da. So in seeing 360 viewpoint of how everybody's character played out and why they did what they did, um, it's understandable to have forgiveness and empathy, and then also just um, accept it as what it is, because those people are in her life now, in her real estate office.
Oh my gosh. So
Talk about trying to figure it out. They're
oh my
back
gosh.
in.
So what did their higher self say? The people on the planet that killed the children and the parents. What did their higher self say?
They said at first they were scared of these aliens. And these aliens weren't like them because they were very natural, and they lived in the caves by the volcano. They live organically with the animals. They're very Lemurian. And that's actually I said, why did you choose the cold area? If you went to the Polynesian Islands, the warmer areas, I'm sure you wouldn't find like everybody else. They're a little bit more, once they get over the scared part of it, they're a little bit more easygoing and accepting. But okay, so you chose that. I get it, something close to your home environment. But the higher self of the blonde people, they look like Vikings that killed them. They basically said that at first they were scared, then they worked with them and was nice to them, but then because they would come to that island for logging, for you know, for resources. And so then it was like, hey, can you help us get these resources? And they had nothing to do. So they're like, sure, we'll help you get resources. But then they got greedy and started using them as labor because they could do, 10 times the work than one normal human being can do. So then they got greedy, and then they got selfish, and then they started the slavery. And the funny thing is, the next lifetime um, that she and her husband incarnated into as Earth were slaves.
Oh wow.
The theme goes on, okay?
Yeah.
And those people were part of the slave handlers.
Oh my
So it's like,
goodness.
okay, at some point you gotta break this cycle,
Yeah.
because the universe is trying to get you guys to figure out how to live in love, in peace and harmony, and find much more positive, peaceful ways to exist.
Yeah.
One thing is, greed is a common theme. Greed and ego is a common theme,
Yeah.
and control. And so getting over that, that's that's the thing. But yeah, when they go through this, it's very revealing, and then they're like, oh, okay, now I understand my hang up. Now I gotta do the work to forgive this, to understand this, so I'm not triggered, you know, to move forward with discernment and respectful boundaries, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole list of things. And then once you do that, as the client moves forward in their life, they're not repeating the old unconscious habits that are being triggered and that's holding them back in certain areas, because they understand why they behave and act that way. And so then they can move forward and build uh, new experiences with more clarity. And that's all it is. We're just building new experiences with more love and more higher consciousness.
Right.
We didn't come here to suffer.
Yes, I know. It can actually be fun.
Yeah, but I have a lot of those things. So do you guys have some examples of that with your clients? Where
Gosh, we have a lot. Yeah.
Where do you
want to say one?
Kind of like a theme. You know what's interesting is you tend to get, this is what I've observed, you tend to get like very powerful beings who have been through a lot of trauma and a lot of like pain even. And when they see it, they're just like, oh, that explains a lot too.
Yeah, I've had I would say we've probably had 5 or 6 clients that have been what I would call in that kind of creator being sort of energy.
Very ancient souls.
Mm-hmm.
The last one that we worked with, he was having some issues around certain triggers because he couldn't understand why. He actually came to us and he's like, I don't understand why every time I get around these certain environmental triggers, why this keeps happening. Like, why do I keep flipping into these certain psychological patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally got him under, the first thing that he actually had a recall of was he had a past life in Egypt, and then he saw this being that looked like, he described it as an angel, but he said it could be a higher form of life, was the phrase he actually used, and it was not him. So he's the, like, one of the head people at this temple, like building this temple, and he's watching this being who eventually comes down, and when they make eye contact, essentially he's told that he's not following his script, basically. Entrusted with certain pieces of information. Why are you not following this? I've told you what needs to be done.
Right.
And he said in this lifetime, the analogy was, in this lifetime, when he came here specifically to reincarnate again, essentially he had been given a script on how he was to support people and protect people. And he felt like that script again had not been followed, because the woman he's currently married to, he and her they've been divorced already once. They've got kids. And it was interesting when he and I were chatting, he was considering separating from her again. But after the session, he's like, I think this is actually the reason why I'm here. I'm supposed to make sure that my kids are taken care of. And he goes, and I need to make sure that I'm good, so that way I can be in whatever relationship I'm going to be in.
Yeah, because you're just going to repeat the same relationship with a new person.
Right.
So he starts doing the work, and
same person, different face.
He started doing the work, and he ends up sending us an email. He said, just so you guys know, I kept focusing on this one part of the QHHT session, and every single time I focused on that, he's like, my relationship with my wife started changing. It actually started improving because I realized that part of my agreement is also with her. And I've actually not been holding myself accountable to that agreement. I actually have been kind of giving myself an out in that situation. So, and they've been doing great, I think, ever since then. He's like, yeah, I have to keep reminding myself I can't give myself outs anymore.
Yeah.
Then I had a session that was like a record breaker for us.
Oh, yeah.
What was it, like 9 hours or something?
What?
It was
So you had to go to the bathroom and eat something. I mean, we're getting a bit famished. You're going to fall over.
I know. Seriously. I was like, oh my, yeah. After I was like this voracious eater afterwards, but there was so much, and it didn't seem, and our clients will often tell us this. Wait, we say, how long do you think you've been under? And they'll say, oh, I don't know, like an hour, hour and a half, or like
20 minutes.
Right.
Well, you know what? When you're in the higher, everybody knows this in the energy healing modalities. When you're in the higher levels of consciousness of energy, time is faster than in the lower levels of 3D reality, and that's why whatever you do, like when you're deep in meditation or you're in a quantum session, it seems like 20 minutes where it's been like 2 or 3 hours, or whatever. So,
or it's like almost like timeless, like you're outside of time sometimes. It's very interesting. So this one client, she and I went at it for almost more than 8 hours.
Yeah, the client was actually a lady who was a friend of mine. I introduced her to Jodi because I thought when she was talking about wanting QHHT, she needed somebody who was, I would say, secure in their divine feminine. I thought that her and Jodi would make a great fit, and her and Jodi chatted, and next thing you know, they clicked, and I'm like, okay, well, let's see what happens, right? So they do their session, and literally I had to go to work that day, and I come back, and she's still on the Zoom call with this person, and I'm like, holy moly, what's going on? And she's looking at me, she's like, we're still chatting. And I'm like, oh my God.
Well, it was more like her subconscious, her super.
So what came out of that? What was the nitty gritty of that session?
She saw so many patterns, especially in her relationships.
And that came from what? Did it come from her her childhood, or did it come from further back?
It came from a past further back.
Oh,
And
further back.
she had had, and so kind of like with your session that you mentioned, that this person was now in a real estate office with them. Mm-hmm. She was actually in like a same circle of working / friendships with these people. And it was almost like this one group against this other group, and they were always kind of clashing. And she was like, I just don't understand why I'm always kind of like the odd person out, you know? And so we went back, and it was those first few lives were like this theme for her. Mm-hmm. And those gentlemen were in those lives with her. And it was just so funny. So interesting. And she's like, oh my gosh, I cannot. She's like, I mean, I can, but I can't. But it's just so crazy. She's like, this answers so many questions for me.
Okay, so what were the suggestions that the subconscious and you offered for this person to? Yeah. But now you know.
Right.
Now moving forward, what is she going to do with this information?
So the superconscious was going to help her in the coming months and the year to have the inner strength to leave that unhealthy relationship and to feel like she can do things not in a codependent way anymore. Right. She could do things on her own where she can just feel like I am a strong individual.
She can step into her own power.
She can step into her own power. The universe has my back, you know, and it's okay if people disagree with me. I don't have to be afraid that they're going to kill me, like in the past life. So, so that there was a lot of things, like even simple things like we had talked about before, like start journaling, go on walks, you know, in the outdoors. Also like things such as, because she worked or she had a lot of associations with like a rock shop. So with getting certain rocks or crystals that resonated with her, and there's a couple specific ones that came up for her. So
yeah. That's really good. See, you know, have you guys had any source codes, those ones that have not incarnated previously? I get a lot of those, and those ones are like, well, I had a specific one that came from Denver. She didn't want the remote. She wanted to come and see Seattle, and then also swing by to the lighthouse and come and visit me. So her boyfriend, now husband, he had a wonderful session. I mean, all his lifetimes revealed so much about his hangups in this lifetime, patterns of and patterns of fear that he had that he couldn't figure out, because he used to be a gangster. He used to be in a gang, you know, a mobster and stuff. And anyway, the white collar crimes, all this other kind of things. And now he just owns a cannabis shop. But anyways, he but the characters in his cannabis shop in past lives were his gangsters. Because and in this life they are very, very different shades of fringe in his cannabis shop. But anyways, besides the point, he had a wonderful session. He found out his hang up, and he was like totally ready to move forward. And then she comes on afterwards, and it's like, I'm seeing black. I'm seeing black. I'm seeing nothing. I'm seeing nothing. She did get to see source and go to the spirit world, and then she sees black. And when we spoke to the higher conscious, it was like, this is the first lifetime that she's had ever. She's never physically incarnated in any lifetime, in any universe, she never incarnated out of spirit. So and the funny thing is, because what I always ask, what do you want to get out of it, you know, in the interview? And she's like, I'm an artist. I'm trying to be an artist, and I'm trying to be edgy, and da da da. It's like, okay. And when we talk to the higher self is the reason why she has these blocks for her artistry is because she has no life experience to channel into her artwork. And when you're an artist, you're channeling your triggers, your pains, your joys, your suffering, all your experiences. And when people buy your artwork, something about that piece of art triggers something in them that resonates because they love.
Yep.
If you have never incarnated, you have none of that.
Yeah.
You're a first-time observer. So the higher self recommended for her art, be a first-time observer. Paint the things that you find like almost like you're an alien on a new planet, which you are. Paint the things that you love. You love like laughing babies. Paint a laughing baby picture. You love a beautiful garden. Paint a beautiful garden. Stop trying to be edgy and all these other things because that's your block. So once you found that out, then it started coming through. Her art started really, really taking off and coming through. But for a long time, she was just like, she was not happy with her art, and that was the reason why. The other thing is a lot of these source code souls can't understand humans.
Yeah.
They don't understand the idiocracy and anomalies about the human personality, why we do the things we do. Like why is it so hard for us to talk to each other and just express our feelings? Why is it so hard for us to communicate? And all these other things that, like, as like an alien looking at a civilization, going, God, why did they do that? you know, that's what a lot of these source code souls, and then also
We
these.
asked this question too.
Why can't the humans just get it together?
Yeah, but it comes down to consciousness level, and then also kind of humbling yourself, getting the ego out of the way, making peace with the ego, getting over your greed. I mean, all the basics. We all know this. We just don't do it because it's the easy way is more enticing, which is actually the longer way. But besides the point, you have infinity to figure it out. So you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But
what you're saying with the ego getting out of the way is extremely important. When Jodi and I have been working with our clients, that's the number one stumbling block. 9 times out of 10, if a client's going to have issues getting them under, or at least getting to their superconscious, the SC, that's where they're going to have the issues. Is the ego trusting us enough to get out of the way, or at least sliding to the side enough to let us talk to the SC?
We had about 3 experiences like this, one being my own daughter. So,
okay, what happened?
Yeah. So she was all excited and she was, ready for her session. We get maybe to her first experience and it's beautiful. It's all unfolding. She's in a city in Europe. She tells me she thinks it's this. And then all of a sudden she just, boom, stops dead cold. She's like, Mom, I think I'm just making all of this up. I think, and I'm just like, okay, well, just calm down. Just tell me what you're seeing. Just tell me.
Trust the image.
That's what I said. I said, just trust that it's your, super conscious coming through.
You could analyze it later.
That's exactly what I was telling her. I'm like, if you can just stop the doubt and just trust your intuition and move forward. Just what are you seeing? What shoes are you wearing? And then she went a little bit further, but then she was just like, okay, Mom, I'm tired. I'm going to take a nap. And she's like, I was really relaxed though. Thanks for getting me in this relaxed place. I was like, no. And so what that told me though, is that's where she was ready to go at that point, because something within her was not allowing her. There was too much resistance. Mm-hmm. And so at some future date, I believe she's going to have another,
maybe not her mom be the practitioner, or maybe like a non-family member, because sometimes you don't want to reveal your soul to somebody that you know.
That's a good point. And maybe, who knows, maybe she was afraid that there was going to be something revealed that could, be controversial or hurt me, or who knows,
I think the other thing with her specifically is that she had a lot of fears around embarrassment.
Yeah, don't want to be embarrassed by your mom. In front of your mom. Yeah.
Or be embarrassed because of something that came up with her mom. And I mean, we both love her daughter a lot. And the fact is, it's like, we don't care what comes up in the session as long as she's able to handle it and process it. That's the most important part.
And apply it to this life. Yeah. And then we had a couple others just kind of do something similar where they're like, well, I don't know if it's me or if I'm just making this up, or if it's just me talking. And the same thing, trust what you're seeing. Just keep, telling us what you're feeling, seeing, all of that.
I always go back to something Dolores said. When the client is having issues in this regard and they're having issues kind of getting down to the SC level, and relaxing enough to trust what they're hearing and seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Have them focus on how they're feeling. Like, what are the feelings coming up in that experience? Don't tell me what you're seeing. Don't tell me what you're hearing. What are you feeling? A lot of times when people get into that state where they're feeling happiness, or they're feeling a certain thing in that experience, and they start trusting that feeling, that's when the SC actually starts popping through.
Yeah. Yeah.
The last session I just did with a lady, that's exactly what happened. She was having issues around visualization.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute I got her to focus on the feeling aspect of it, she went right into the first past life and then right into the SC. It was like boom, boom.
And that's a really good point that Will brings up, because we've had a couple of those where, you know, people have different spiritual gifts.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than visualizing and being more clairvoyant, people might be clairsentient, or more auditory.
Or it was a smell.
Yeah, that's right. She's like, I can't necessarily visualize things, but I can tell you what I'm smelling, or I can tell you like what I'm feeling. Or she's like, and as far as colors or anything, I can actually feel the colors.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of tap into like, what are people's gifts, or what type of learner are they even?
Yeah, that's totally true. Now, the thing that you said earlier, Will, about Connie giving you all your 72 session paperwork and letting you know, hey, take this with you. I don't want any government agents showing up. So this is a funny thing. I'm not sure if you guys, like, I get a lot of starseeds, and a lot of starseeds are followed by UFOs. So I get a lot of UFO abductee clients, and a lot of clients go, I saw a bunch of UFOs, and I'm not sure. A couple people in my neighborhood saw it. I'm not sure why other people aren't seeing. I'm like, it's all about frequency. So, and it's probably a UFO that you're probably part of their family group, and you're doing a mission as a human for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's usually the case. But before a session with a alien contactee or an alien starseed soul client, I would get visitations, like it seemed like lucid dream, like real life, in my room. And I had one, for example, I had one where I'm sleeping, I'm having a dream of me sleeping in my room, like like it's real. And then these, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet tall gold shining beings come through, and they come into front of my bed, and they're looking, and then they're going, yep, that's the right one. And then as they're leaving, one taps my leg, and I immediately wake up and get out of bed. But somehow they had gone into the hallway. I immediately get up, get out of bed, because I'm lucid in my dreams. I remember everything. And so I immediately get out of my bed. I go to the hallway. My husband's like, I woke my husband up, and I'm like, there are these goat beings, like my foot. And they just went through the door. And he's like, what are you talking about? So I was like, oh, okay. So this happens. And then I had my client, and he is an astronaut in other lifetimes. He's the alien astronaut in other lifetimes. He goes to different planets, and he does kind of like research of different planets. And he researched this one planet. It was a gaseous planet, and there was a beautiful arch, but there was no physical people, because all the people were light beings, and they were these radiant gold energy light beings, the exact ones that visited me.
Oh my gosh.
So I get these. So just kind of like Connie's like, I don't want government agents showing up. I get aliens showing up, and they just want to kind of give me like a heads up that you're going to be working with one of our people who lost their way and got stuck in the 3D psyops melodramas and is not completing the mission. They're going to get back on the mission. But the mission usually is raise consciousness, do something good, leave the place better than had you entered. Pretty simple mission, but it's easy to get lost of the distractions of the amusement park.
Oh yeah.
I think that's also the idea that Connie had for me. I think she was being led by spirit to allow me to discover what, because the thing is, during my sessions with me specifically, she never told me what happened during the sessions. Basically, the session would occur, and then I would be taken straight over to either have energy work done or massage work done.
Release the energy.
Yeah, and once that was done, then I would leave. And I'm thinking, okay, whatever happened. So here I am, in 2000, and I start scanning in all these documents. I start glancing over them, and I'm like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of stunned me a little bit. And then literally right after I got the documents scanned in and put in digital storage, this massive first flood in my apartment happened. Wiped out a bunch of stuff, including the paper documents.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to pull stuff out to see what was working, and then a second flood happened. And I've often wondered, okay, well, why did those two events occur? And I've wondered if that wasn't like certain things that were like they were trying to make sure that I didn't have like a record of what was said or what was done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, anyhow.
That's one of the questions I'll be asking during his QHHT session.
You're going to uncover a lot of content to put in your book series.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
It's a work in progress. It's going to be a bestseller. You know, here's the thing I wanted to ask you guys about your clients. And just to clarify for people, for QHHT, there's different levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. I've taken all 3. If you do level 1, you are fully equipped to do a session and facilitate as many as you want. You've learned everything. Because of taking all 3, you don't learn anything new. You refine certain interviewing skills.
Yes.
Okay. As you go along, and you learn a little bit more about kind of like when you're doing with this, what's a good way to work with that. So you learn more, you refine certain skills, but you don't learn anything new. And level 2, level 3, those skills can be learned in those additional level of courses, but they most often are learned through sessions. So don't be hung up on the levels. If Source sent you a specific person, there is a reason. Just like there's a reason out of 8 billion people in the world, you guys met. As part of your pre-life plan. There is a reason. So I often get, like I said, Starseed, Tulku people, source code souls, alien souls, people who are like, what's going on with this? So I get that this is my theme. I don't get any SSP kind of stuff, but this is my theme because I'm the in the spirit world, a pre-life planner, and my specialty was people new to Earth. So kind of like, oh, I'm your new guidance counselor for this new university. You're a transfer student. It's a little bit different here. So let me go through some of the things that you might need, and of course my information. Yeah. So anyways, the reason why I bring that up is oftentimes you're, from what I found from my experience, I'm just like a medium, like either a catalyst or a connector or a bridge or a resource. I'm just like a medium. Like I always say, you're going to meet many teachers, take what you can, try to learn what you can, and then move on. You can take many, many courses and then move on after you complete and digest the material, and the material. You're not just learning it, but like you know it, and then move on so you can continue to advance yourself. But oftentimes I get clients who use the resource as a way to they use it as a tool, kind of like they use channeling meditation as a tool. They can also use the quantum hypnosis as a tool to get insights on, like, maybe a computer program that they're working on and they're stuck on a code. So they'll speak to the higher self, and they'll speak to the souls in the spirit world that works with code to get answers. Then they wake up and they go to work and they finish the code. I get musicians who are stuck on how to create certain projects and how to create certain songs or certain albums or whatever pursuit they're at. And so to take a session, get that information that they needed from the session, go back and finish it. I've had clients who, I had a client who, she's a yoga instructor, and her husband is, he does crafts as well. But they wanted to start a bed and breakfast. They don't know a lot about business, but they wanted to start a bed and breakfast, and they found this beautiful property, and they kept going to the specific area on the property and just sitting there forever. And everybody would come visit, would sit there, and they had this beautiful property with these trees that kind of warp into a circle, and then like fairy rings out all over. Its magical property. And so they wanted to know, how can we use this property? And in the session, the oversoul and the spirits that live in that area said, there's a lot of fairies that live in this property. That's why you use the fairy circles. There's a lot of natural portals. That's why you see the circle things. And so you can use that as part of their advertising as for meditation, for yoga, for energy healing, for whatever. And the main area where everybody congregates, that empty like grass pasture area, 100 feet below it is a crystal cavern.
Oh, that's amazing.
A huge crystal cavern, 100 feet below the ground, and it sends out energy healing. That's why all the animals congregate there. So
Wow.
so they're like, oh, okay, so now they are doing a bed and breakfast, but they're offering yoga, energy healing, metaphysical courses, nature walks to find fairy rings and portals. I mean, all these different things. It's a complete metaphysical escape from reality a little bit, and also you get food to table food at the bed and breakfast. So it's a really unique package, and they're building that right now, and they're building the homes to be kind of like an icosahedron, kind of like buckyballs. So
Interesting.
yeah, so
Wow.
I get a lot of these, and these are star seeds. They come to do their little piece and then leave it a little bit better. But they get caught up like many humans in the 3D dramas, and the point is to not get stuck in the wheel of Dharma. Okay.
Right. I had
So
something similar actually told to me. So I was told that I needed to set up healing sanctuaries, and I would be doing it
yes.
with my spouse, who would be from the military. And at the time, I didn't know who that was, though. But yeah.
Ta-da.
Military as an SSP.
Military as a Marine.
Yeah.
Oh, military as a Marine. Okay. Yeah.
So in the experience, I couldn't see the face. I could only see the legs and the boots.
Well, you were not ready to see the rest of the image yet. They were going to give you a teaser.
Yep, exactly.
Because then maybe you told them before you incarnated that don't show me the full thing because I might reject him. Like, like show me like the teaser so I can kind of slowly learn about and then like get acclimated.
I think too, I was dating somebody at the time, and I think I had to close that out and learn all the lessons I needed to prior to moving on.
Yeah.
I think if I had known, I would have been like ending it too fast with this other person.
Yeah.
So
That definitely happens.
yeah.
The other thing that definitely happens about using quantum hypnosis as a tool for further information, also is, do you guys get a lot of people who have previous lives in Lemuria, Atlantis, or any other lost civilizations? Okay,
Yes.
what are some of the fascinating ones? And then they go and they find verifiable evidence.
I know. Well,
What are some of the ones you've had?
For me, I was like an oracle or a very metaphysical type healer in Lemuria, and I also used crystals. And I remember sliding them into these things for information. It's interesting, yeah. So, but I often get clients like that, and we talked about what they did there. There was actually one where they were in the midst of
A client?
they were in the midst of an explosion, or just before it, like
before the planet blew up.
Before, like, I think it was Atlantis and Lemuria.
Oh,
like, went at it or whatever. And
yeah.
was destroyed.
We had one client who was he was talking about these crystals that Atlantis had developed. And essentially they were quantumly entangled crystals. Did a bunch of different things at once. They were a communication device. They were memory storage, meaning like literal memory storage.
Yeah.
They could be used as a weapon, all kinds of stuff. The intent of the user. And he said that they're going to end up finding bits and pieces of Atlantis and he named the year. I think it was this. We did the session. It was in 2021. He said within like 2 years. And this is like he said that the thing that they have to be careful of is watch if they find the crystals, because that could be dangerous.
Yeah, and I kept having dreams myself of like a landmass coming up off of the side of California in the Pacific Ocean. And Spirit told me, well, that's going to be part of Lemuria. So who knows?
Yeah. According to Buddhist folklore, Lemuria is a sunken continent, basically through the whole Pacific.
Yeah.
And then Atlantis is obviously Atlantic Ocean, but yeah, lots of fascinating stuff there. But the thing that's very interesting, and this is what people come to find out when they actually, besides getting into the past lives and the life between lives of why did I plan this, or what do I plan for myself for my next incarnation if I choose to incarnate again. Some people never incarnate again, but if they do, what's in store for them. But the other thing also is future lives and parallel lives in the multiverse. So I've had this, and this is a sixth sense, personal Mandela effects, to be able to biolocate from one version of reality to another by doing inner work and raising your energy and frequency. Because that's how you match. It's like a tuning fork or changing a radio station. You have to get to that frequency to tune into that reality of that unique signature. So like in Buddhism, and much of this is substantiated in this field of science as well. Like 7.83 is the Hertz frequency of the heartbeat of Earth. That's the Schumann resonance. The people that live on Earth have that subtle 7.83 Earth frequency in their aura field. Now, their aura field stores all the information about that soul. So it's like your whole resume is on your aura field. It also includes the resonant frequency of the universe and the parallel reality that you exist in. So some people's aura field have multiple frequencies that match them to different multiverses. Okay. And they'll find this in science, but Buddhism has been talking about this forever. So in quantum hypnosis, I get a lot of people who listen to the podcast and then listen to book interviews who are like, okay, my backstory changed. My family history changed. Where's my brother? That kind of stuff. So it can be jarring. My spouse, it has a different color eyes, and we met completely differently. And how do I deal with this? We get a variety of these personal Mandela effects. And so oftentimes there's a little bit of suggestion, well, nobody gets a chance to fall in love with a spouse over and over again. You get the chance. So learn, so you come up with creative ways to make good suggestions.
Yeah.
Or the past change, you have been doing some inner work, you begin this metaphysics stuff, you've been doing this inner work, you're being more clear in what you want to manifest. The big, huge argument that used to be a boulder in your relationship with your mom, it didn't become that big of an issue because the back history has changed, and now you have this great relationship. So just take advantage of the opportunity to have this great relationship with your mom, and then as a second opportunity, a second chance. And so because your mom is looking at you going, I don't know why you're acting this way to me. What did I do to you? And you're hung up on the parallel reality where you guys had issue.
Right.
It doesn't exist in this one. So there's a lot of that kind of conversation.
That's true.
So what have you guys had?
I think also to that point, Vaughn, is that when you go and you're with family or friends and you kind of recount history, so to speak, with just saying, hey, do you remember that experience when blah, 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 blah? And they said, well, that's not the way it happened. It happened like this. Like, I can give you an example. One time, my daughter, when she was little, she was like 18 months, she went to go get her sippy cup. And she tripped and sliced her little eyebrow here. And we had to take her to the ER. It was so sad. It was traumatic. She had to get stitches there. Now, when she told the story recently, she said, yeah, I was just starting, I was starting to talk and I was telling my dad, daddy, they're hurting me. Well, in my reality, she said, mommy, they're hurting me. And I told the nurse, you didn't numb her enough. You have to numb her. She's still feeling it. She's still feeling you, like, put that little like hook, like fish hook type of thing. So it's so weird, and I go, hey, sweetie, who told you that you said that? She goes, oh, my dad. But so in his reality, that's what she yelled out. Interesting. So
yeah,
it's really, it's quite an interesting little tidbit that you talk about here, this Mandela effect. So
yeah,
be on different timelines and different parallel, timelines that they're recalling. It's really fascinating.
That was one of the first things when I started doing my work with Connie that actually showed up, because we'd sat down, I think it was the third or fourth session we were going to be doing, and we were talking about the Monopoly guy, the guy with the monocle.
Yeah.
That's why he looked rich, was because he had the monocle.
If you look now, he doesn't.
Now he doesn't look like the rich old man.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
And I asked her about that. I said, didn't he used to have a monocle? And she kind of looked at me and she's like, what are you talking about? I said the guy, because she had the game in her office. I said, the guy on the Monopoly board, didn't he used to have a monocle over his eye? Because I remember him specifically having one.
Yeah, me too.
She's like, no. And I'm like, okay, is she gaslighting me or am I crazy? So, and then it was maybe, I'd say probably about 4 or 5 years later, I was chatting with some friends, and he actually had a picture of a game board that actually had the guy with the monocle on it. And I'm like, okay, what in the hell's going on, dude? He's like, I don't know. He goes, but I remember that too, and I have a picture of it.
Yeah. Like the lion, the lamb in the Bible is now the lion, or the wolf lays down with the lamb.
Yeah, that is so bizarre. We actually just saw this TikTok video with the gentleman who used to do a show with, I forget their names, but they used to have this big show with Dave Wilcock would be guesting on it and stuff. Edge of Wonder, yeah. So he has this TikTok show where he's actually going through the Mandela effect, and he goes, you know how that one part in Harry Potter, the books, says this? He goes, I went and looked back and it does not say that anymore. He's like, what is going on?
Like he remember this part where when Harry got to Hogwarts, Harry was standing there getting ready to be put in front of the Sorting Hat. And basically Snape saw him, and Snape says in the book, he says, that has to be Harry because he has Lily's eyes.
Yeah.
His mother's eyes.
I know Lily's eyes.
Yeah.
And in the movie, they even kind of alluded to that a little bit. And all of a sudden, it's like you go back and look in the books now, and it's not there now in whatever edition of the books is out now.
Oh yeah, that's happened to Trekkies too. They remember episode that never was recorded, and they can recall the full detail of the episode. I mean, I grew up and I watched Shazam with Sinbad, and he was actually funny as the genie. I recall the I could do these Mandela effect. In Buddhism, we call parallel realities. But anyways, I do these episodes for fun as well to kind of help lightly trigger people. But they're gonna get one or two response. You're gonna get like, oh yeah, like acknowledgement. Like I know what I experienced directly. It's not some bad memory. I know what I experienced. And then you're gonna get like an NPC reaction where it's like, okay, I call it the NPC reaction. Like if when you find a loophole in the video game freezes. I don't know what to do with this information, so I'm not sure if like who's the player, who's the NPC, why are NPCs having players, why are players having babies who are NPCs. That question is probably gonna be another episode with another guest.
That's gonna be a good one.
So these are funny. We're trying to figure out what's going on in reality. They're our client.
Yeah, I remember having a past reading. Actually, this is before QHHT reading, but a past reading with a practitioner, and she was trying to go and help me find out about my past lives. But all of a sudden, she goes, "Okay, tell me about what you're seeing." So I was in Paris, and I said, "But," I go, "Oh," she goes, "Well, do you have a name?" And I said, "Yeah, it's Victoria. Victoria for victory." And she goes, oh, okay, what are you wearing? And I'm like, oh, I'm here. I'm wearing this. I'm wearing like but it's like almost like, looks like today, like modern times. And I'm carrying this satchel type bag. And I'm like rushing into this building because I'm supposed to like, carry in these documents for people. And she goes, okay, that's not a past life. That's a parallel life. And I didn't know what a parallel life was at that time. And I was like, what does that mean?
It's an altar.
Yeah. I'm like, what does that mean? And so that actually was another little breadcrumb for me after I learned about the SSP.
The SSP.
Yeah.
And the weird part, you asked about confirmations earlier, right?
Yeah. So like your 1943 German speaking dialect from a different reality.
So here we are. And before this particular fact got brought up, I was actually describing to her a mission that one of my altars was on. And I was describing Victoria in this exact scenario.
Ah.
Was actually watching her from a sniper position as she went into the office. And when I started describing it, she's like, this is what I remember. She's telling this whole story about what she saw.
Yeah.
So it was very strange when I started describing it, and she was actually also explaining what happened from her end. It was like this weird sort of confirmation. It was like, really? It's like, so that wasn't like some sort of weird, dream of mine. That was actually a memory.
Yeah. See, this is where I go with speculation because when you get to this part of metaphysics and conversation, I've been waiting a long time to get to this part to have this conversation with people, waiting for them to get to a level of consciousness to have this conversation. And I'm getting more and more of it, which is wonderful. But the thing is that when you get to this part of discussing the multiverse and when you speak through the subconscious or the oversoul through your clients and you're having these conversations about the multiverse and the client's like real life personal Mandela effects, the answer that I always get is it is not necessary to try to figure out how it's done. Okay, just figure out why certain things happen the way they are and find a way to navigate to the next best version of reality. You're just navigating the multiverse to experience higher and higher forms of reality that have more joy and more love. Because that as you raise your frequency and your consciousness, you become a higher frequency being of more joy and love. You become more of a light being. You emanate more light. You basically are a living version of spirit, embodied.
Or the highest version of you. So for instance, I've given clients the advice of, if say they've been going through depression or some addictions or whatever, I said, now you realize there's a higher iteration of you. They're like, okay, all right. I said, now I want you, and I may lead them in a meditation or what have you, as I'm doing maybe an energy healing session with them. And I say, okay, I want you to focus on the happiest, most joyous, iteration of you. And maybe at first they can't like connect with it because of where they are in frequency.
Yeah.
Just picture, let's get into your heart space. Just picture what you can as far as, the happiest, or maybe first I'll get them into the happiest time that they can remember in this 3D realm.
Right.
That will help them get into, visualizing and feeling the highest iteration of them.
It jumpstarts them.
It jumpstarts. That's very good. Yes.
Yeah. And this
then I say, ask that highest iteration what you can do. Get there. And then they get a lot of information.
Yeah, that's like we're just unpacking and elevating, unpack and elevate. That's just the name of the game. But the thing is that about these multiverses, and this is where we can speculate because it's happening in real time. That's why I don't really make predictions. And that's why when somebody sees something in a session, it might be one possible reality, but they can choose to manifest it and engage in it, or they can choose not to. You still have a choice. And so Al Gore, obviously in this reality, didn't become a president. He didn't. And the Civil War that you say is going to happen in 2016, that didn't happen. The United States didn't happen in 2016. So elements of... Go ahead.
There's one interesting fact in that, right? Al Gore did win the popular vote in Florida.
Okay.
Obama in 1995 was unknown.
That's true.
there's no way anybody would have known who Obama was at that point in time.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think beyond those two people and their free will, there's also a frequency for the collective. And so if the collective decides, you know what, we're swaying more this way, then that reality changes, that timeline. And so then it may not go with Al Gore. The decision tree changes.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to see real-time changes in the multiverse. And I speculate, because if on a collective conscious level, you get them settling to a certain frequency, to a certain reality, I speculate that media is constantly trying to get us to manifest a certain reality for them. And if we don't like what we see on media, we could choose to change the channel and watch the Discovery Channel or Planet Earth or whatever else, Travel Channel, Food Channel, something else. We could choose something else. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to project that reality for you. I'm not going to contribute to my consciousness to project that reality. And the other thing is, when different players, okay, who are a higher frequency, higher conscious, start adding their frequency into the tapestry, that can change the outcome for a certain reality in the multiverse as well. So, I mean, these are very metaphysical conversations. Buddhists have it all the time. So we can go on and on and on and on. It's really fun. Let me ask you a last thing about what you get from clients. Sixth senses. As clients come in for one thing, and they learn how to manifest more clearly after dealing with the triggers and the unknown issues that keep on recurring for them, they elevate their frequency and consciousness, and sixth senses start coming online. As they elevate, new sixth senses come online. Some can be jarring, and so sometimes I do sixth sense consultations all the time with clients all over the world, and it's like no two are exactly the same, and no two suggestion for anybody is going to exactly work. So it's always kind of trial and error. Like, well, try this, try that. So I'll give you an example, and we'll leave this with an example from one of your clients. So I had a client, a college student, and she loves this stuff. But anyways, she got to a certain point. She did some course in metaphysics, and all of a sudden, the sixth sense of being able to see auras, not just on people, but on everything, computers, cars, bugs, everything. It was a psychedelic trip all the time. She couldn't focus because she's seeing everybody's rainbows all the time. And so she went to a psychologist to get medication. It basically zombified her. So she got off of that. She didn't like the side effects. And she'd been trying, and she found me through Synchronicity. And at first it was like, okay, the suggestion is put some fan at night so you don't get bugged by other spirits who they see your light and you're easy to find, because all of we're like beacons and like lighthouses in the dark. So they, so now they don't bug it. Now she can get full sleep. And I worked with her to slowly focus, tune it down, and focus on just what you're looking at. Try to learn to tune. You can tune out your boyfriend really good. So learn to do the same, apply the same to life. So you're just focusing on this person and that person. And so she's like, oh yeah, I'm really good at that. Okay, I'm going to do that. So she did that. And so now she got to the point where she toned it down, and now it's not a psychedelic trip, and she can focus on her job and her school. But what she started noticing, I got a new problem, Vaughn. I'm like, what's the new problem? Now I'm seeing shadows in people's auras. So I said, okay, fine. When you talk to people, ask him if there's anything going on in that area. And she'd start doing that, and that there was a pain there. If they had a neck pain, there was a neck pain. If they had a shadow around their forehead, they had a migraine, whatever the thing is. So it's like, okay, out of 8 billion people in the world, there's a reason why they came into your presence. And if they didn't want that healing, they will bring it back. So go ahead and just imagine wiping that smug color off, the darkness off of their aura field, and just like a painter. And so she started doing that, and people are like, oh God, I feel so much better. Oh my God. And, and she, just carry conversation. So now all she does all day is walk around in her life, and if she sees dark areas in people's auras, she just energy heals all day long. She just does it naturally. There's nothing. It's just natural. There's nothing to do. No kind of process to do, or ritual or chanting. She just painted away. And so all she does is walk around healing people all day throughout her life. But thousands of counseling sessions and medications and all this, it didn't work. But once she actually started to work with it, she was able to take it to a whole different level that she never knew existed.
That's
So, do you guys get sixth senses? Because your clients will come to you for sixth senses.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. What is your example?
We actually had that one woman where she had so many of her gifts, but they were going into a direction that she didn't know how to bridle. She didn't know how to kind of like your client. She didn't know how to rein in and channel them. And she's like, okay, now it's to the point where this one dark energy is not leaving me alone. And okay, how do I, deal with it? And so we tried some things. We had about 3
Send it to the light.
We tried all that.
Right.
It was very, and what we did come up with, actually 2 clients, we found that her house and the land, something about the land, they were attached to. And so that's why they kept coming in. And then the one gentleman, it had something to do with the river and land where he was, that he was too.
The lady in particular, we had to have her put down St. Michael medals at the corners of the property. And once she did that, we also had her put down black tourmaline in each of the corners. And as she was doing it, the black tourmaline, as she placed it, she would say, I'm creating this energy grid to clean my land of any negative energy that may be here. It's now part of this grid. And I think it was maybe she had emails back, I think, after that was done. And she's like, my house feels completely different.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And she didn't understand that. I think a lot of times people don't understand that part of their job is to also take back their power or be empowered.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You learn to have dominion over reality.
Yes.
We have dominion. Now we need to learn to have dominion.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, we always remind our clients, look, we're just helping you facilitate what you already have.
Right.
And you can also heal. You can heal, what's around you, your surroundings, your environment, all of that. So 2 examples that come to mind specifically. And then there are other examples where they didn't necessarily realize they had certain things. And then all of a sudden things started surfacing and they're like, oh, whoa. And what can I do with this? And we're like, well, let's find out about your mission and this and that. And then.
Yeah. And the oversoul will give suggestions as well.
Exactly.
Of, we recommend and then there's a reason why they send them to you, because you have resources in your life that would give them suggestions, and then they can pick from those suggestions and try them out and see which one works for them. But yeah, it's very, very, very fascinating stuff. When you go into metaphysics, you really go into our consciousness of all the experiences that we have, why we manifest the experiences that we have, what are we supposed to do, and how do we elevate to basically live and love in the higher frequencies of consciousness. Like I said, we didn't come here to suffer, people.
No.
Okay.
That I was going to say that we tend to have is youth. They're like just barely in college or about to be in college. They're just navigating kind of like their junior, senior year, about to go in college, or whether they should even go to college. And so,
a lot of those.
Yeah, we've had probably like 5 around, about 5 to 7.
5 to 7,
and they're some of them are old souls, but they're
distracted,
a young body. But
distracted. They're getting caught up in the game, and they need to focus.
Yes, but some of them don't have supportive families or don't
feel
anybody to talk to about what's going on with them as far as even their gifts or what they're seeing.
Yeah.
And they can be ostracized. And so they're like, okay, we feel like you're the only ones we can talk to about this. So we're like, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah.
When we talked earlier with the lady about the smells, initially we were trying to get her to do a visualization technique. She was having a really rough time trying to visualize what we were trying to have her visualize. So we're sitting there, we're chatting, and I finally made a suggestion to Jodi. I'm like, we need to switch senses with this lady and just see if there's something else we can use to get her in her right brain.
Right.
Out of her left brain, out of the
Analytical, logical
portion, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried having her listen to auditory. We tried having her imagine auditory stuff. We tried having her imagine, tactile input. We tried having her imagine taste.
Mm-hmm.
The smell, that was the trigger. So I'm saying this because if you guys are having issues, sometimes you're going under and you're watching our video here with Vaughn and us, try having your practitioner maybe switch which sense you're using to see if there's something that might be stronger.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Some people they're not great visual people. They're actually better smell people, taste people, or hearing people maybe. So, or tactile,
Yeah. Well, what's the last message that you guys want to let people know?
I would say choose a modality that you feel can really get you to the highest iteration of you. And by all means, QHHT is definitely a powerful modality, but there are, a lot of powerful modalities out there, but spirit will guide you to which one will help right now at this coordinate in time of your journey, your spiritual journey and your journey in life.
The message I would also put out there too, and I think what you're saying is dead on, babe. But the other message I would also append to that would be understand that what you're doing is in baby steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to kind of get yourself to where you're prepping yourself for the next stage of evolution for you. Usually with a QHHT session, you're rocket launching yourself into the next stage of evolution because QHHT is designed to quickly help you weed out what the subconscious and what other issues may be there to work with, right? The subconscious will say, well, you've got these issues we can work on right now, right? Like in Jodi's case, there's one issue she had, and it said, well, we'll negotiate with her on this. We'll come back to this. There may be issues where maybe you have a second or third session with someone, and maybe by that second session, you're now ready to work on deeper core level stuff. Because we have had that happen too, where folks, they'll be working with us, and we've had one gentleman, he's been with us for about a year now. And when he comes in, it's like he has these big evolutionary steps. He and his wife will be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm now no longer doing these activities. I'm now actually doing this to actually help myself spiritually grow. It's like, okay, wow. So it's his subconscious and his connection to the SC that allows him to do that. But my point is that be aware that what's happening is you're progressing at the rate with which your subconscious is okay with you progressing. It will never put you in a position where you're going to suffer harm. It'll never put you in a position where you're going to be in danger.
That's so true. Now, I know Dolores Cannon has the idea that it's one and done with QHHT, but we have a difference of opinion there. We believe that you can do more than one because you're going to be at a different stage in life.
Yeah, check in every couple of years. Yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah,
and then we also tend to do an energy healing or like a debriefing type of session afterwards because they have a lot to process. And they have sometimes questions or whatever, or if we do what's called an SIA session, and that's for people who want to access any information regarding the SSP. So
right,
that tends to help them process a lot of this information.
That's awesome. Well, and like you said earlier, you don't just offer QHHT as a modality for quantum hypnosis, but you offer many other modalities. So you have a lot of tools and tricks in your bag there to pull out for people, which is really handy. I have been doing energy healing and metaphysics my whole life, and I'm always learning new stuff. And I never know when I'm going to pull out something that I learned like 30 years ago for a specific client.
True.
So, you never know. But that's the trust the source is sending you the person that's right for you right now for a reason. So Miss Jodi Reynosa and Mr. Will Nutter, thank you for coming back to share your quantum hypnosis findings. For more information about Will and Jodi's offerings, please visit their website, which is in the show notes. It is Linktree/services with JAW. The exact link is in the show description. And thank you kindly to our listeners for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, Blessings.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the 5th dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the 5th dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.